We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman Nun Hey, and we are up to Seif Yud. The Shulchan Aruch writes, Im na'ar echad nolad be-29 le'adar rishon mishana me'uberet. If you have a boy that's born on the 29th of Adar Rishon, in a Ibriyar, in a Shana Me'uberet, V'nar echad nolad be'adar sheni be'echad bo, and the same year, the other kid is born on Adar Sheni, and the second Adar in the first day. Says the Shulchan Aruch, you'll end up with a very interesting, ironic situation that when they become bar mitzvah in a regular year, the one that became the one that was born 2 days, 3 days later will become bar mitzvah almost a month earlier than the other kid. And when they become bar mitzvah, the year is not an iburiyar, is not a shana me'uberet. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Oto shenolad be-29 le'adar harishon, tzarich lamtin ad 29 le'adar b'shnat 13 liot ben 13 shana. That boy that was born later becomes bar mitzvah early, but the one that was born at the end of Adar Rishon, in 29th of Adar Rishon, he has to wait until the 29th of Adar of that year, which is only one Adar. And the one that was born later on, in the beginning of Adar Sheni of the year that they were born, באחד באדר שני יהיה בן 13 שנה, כיוון שהגיע אחד באדר של 3 של שנת 13. He will ironically become bar mitzvah almost the whole month earlier than the one that was actually younger than them, right? So here's a case you could actually try to test this in your homes. Where do you have a case that somebody is born later but becomes bar mitzvah earlier, and that would be really the case. So what Shulchan Aruch is saying, this is from Agur, the Maran in Bet Yosef brings this Mishna Agur, that it's not a matter of amount of days that you become a bar mitzvah, but rather it is the halachic month and the date. So the previous Seif we had about Rosh Hashanah, that if you were born on almost Motzai Rosh Hashanah, right before Shkia, you will become bar mitzvah lel Rosh Hashanah, even though that me'et le'et, time to time, is not full 13 years, day to day, hour to hour. So you are not fully 13 years by counting the hours of the year, but nevertheless is the halachic day that sets that. And this Seif Mara says not only the day is halachic, but even the year is halachic. So even though that this boy already is complete 13 years, that means 13 times 12 months, still not bar mitzvah until you have the month of Adar come, and the bar mitzvah will be at the end of Adar, versus the other kid, which really is not, is not yet bar mitzvah necessarily, depending on the hours, and he will become bar mitzvah almost the whole full month earlier. Says the Shulchan Aruch, the Rama adds, "Umishenolad be'adar u'na'asa bar mitzvah b'shnat ha'ibur." If you were born in Adar, in a regular Adar, and your bar mitzvah is in a year that has 2 Adars, which Adar do you celebrate? Which Adar do you celebrate? So says the Rama, "Eino na'aseh bar mitzvah ad Adar hasheni." You don't become bar mitzvah until the second Adar, right? Because the second Adar is the main Adar of that year. The Adar that is samuch le Nisan, like the Gemara says. The Adar that is adjacent to Nisan is the real Chodesh Adar, and hence you will have the bar mitzvah right adjacent to Chodesh Nisan, which would be the second Adar. Says the Mishna Berurah, Ena me'uberet. If the year that the two boys were born and the year that they become bar mitzvah, both were leap years, they were ibur year, אז בוודאי היינו אומרים הנולד בראשון יהיה בר מצווה באדר ראשון והשני באדר השני. Then they would keep the order of the bar mitzvahs because the first one would become bar mitzvah in the first Adar. The second one would be bar mitzvah in the second Adar, right? So even though that we just said in the Ramah that if you are born in a regular Adar year with one Adar, and then you become bar mitzvah in a year with two Adars, you keep the Adar Sheni. But if you were born in a Shana Me'uberet, in a leap year, and you were born in Adar Rishon, of course, the bar mitzvah would be in Adar Rishon as well. The 29 Adar, the Ma'od Tema Shechashev Adar Rishon Shenolad Bo Bimkom Shvat. Maybe you would have thought that Adar Rishon should be considered like Shvat, and therefore it should become bar mitzvah 13 times 12 months after he was born. So now he is full 13 years, so to speak, old, and therefore he should be bar mitzvah 29th of Shvat instead of 29th of Adar. It teaches us that no, his bar mitzvah is in the month of Adar and 29th of the month, even though that when you do the math, he has 1 month more under his belt, so to speak, than any other bar mitzvah bachur, but nevertheless, that would be the case. Now, if this sounds strange to you, I will explain something to you that will make it much more logical. If you have 2 or 3 even ibur years within the 13 years of a person's life, right? Normally speaking, every 4th year is an ibur year, but then you have exceptions to the rule as well. Sometimes you have more. So in 13 years, right, you have for sure 2 Shana Me'uberet. You could have even more, right? You could have 3. I'm not sure if you could have 4, but those kids, they have more months in their thing, even if they're born the same month. Let's say, imagine if they were born on Nisan and they became bar mitzvah on Nisan. Doesn't make a difference, right? But a kid that has had 2 ibur years, 2 Shana Me'uberets, 2 leap years from his birth to his bar mitzvah, versus a kid that has had 3 or more, their age, as far as days is concerned, is very different. One of them has 1 or 2 months more than the other one, right? That's the general thing that works. But nevertheless, the bar mitzvah works with the months, not with the amount of days that you have lived. So that's something to consider as well. Makes it a little bit more normalized. It's not just Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni that you become bar mitzvah. It happens to be the Shulchan chose a very ironic case with these 2 boys, that are born 2 days apart. But nevertheless, it is in every case of bar mitzvah, really, you have to deal with that as well. So says the Mishna Berurah, Eino Naaseh bar mitzvah. This the Maran writes that this kid does not become bar mitzvah until the at the end of Adar. And the Ramah adds that in a year the bar mitzvah falls to be on a leap year. Even if you were born in a regular year Adar, you become bar mitzvah only on Adar Sheni. The Mishna Berurah explains, even though the Maran already writes in Seif Tet, the Chodesh Ha'ibur Bichlal, Mikol Makom, Hava Amina Davka Benulad B'Chodesh Acher. Even though the Maran already told us that the leap year's month is included, I wouldn't know that by Adar it works that way, right? because I would say it's talking about Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? That if your bar mitzvah is Rosh Chodesh Nisan after a leap year, that you count the leap year as an extra month also. ושנת 13 מעוברת, אין נעשה בר מצווה עד ראש חודש ניסן. אבל נורד בראש חודש אדר, but בראש חודש אדר I wouldn't know. I would say, if you're born on a regular year, Rosh Chodesh Adar, you should really become bar mitzvah on a leap year on Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon. Why should you wait until Adar Sheni? Hava Amina, I would have thought the Nasa bar mitzvah Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon. They should become bar mitzvah the first Adar. The Adar Rishon lo nikra Adar. Kamash Malan is teaching us that Adar Rishon is not called Adar for the events on calendar. Events on calendar, Adar Rishon is just in parentheses, so to speak. It's an additional month that we have, which doesn't take a calendar event space. It's just we have to add 1 month because, by the way, why is this just a little, Adar Sheni for dummies, so to speak, Ibur year for dummies. The reason is because we are expected to have a merge of lunar and solar calendar together, because it says the Chodesh Hashana, we count to the moon, right? Chodesh, Chidush HaLevana, right? On the other hand, the Torah says that Pesach has to be Chag HaAviv, Chag HaAviv. It has to be in spring. Now, the problem with lunar calendar is that every year it falls off 11 days from the solar calendar. For those who have only a lunar calendar, like the Muslims do have it, right? So for instance, Ramadan of the Muslims, every year is in a different time. Sometimes you have Ramadan in the winter, which everyone is very happy with it because they have to fast the whole month, and the days are much shorter because they started from the morning, Sahari, they have like, early before Alot HaShachar, they eat. I wonder where they got that from, right? No, so it's the halachot, the shkar, technically speaking, you could do that by Yom Kippur, you can do it by Shabbat, you can do it by regular Tanit, you could. So they have much shorter. Sometimes it falls deep in the summer, and poor guys, like they have to daven, they have to fast rather the entire long day in the heat of the summer. So that's because every year it's 11 days that goes back, so to speak. So same thing happens by a Jewish calendar. Every year it's 11 days different. So now you understand why every 4th year basically you have a Shana Me'uberet, because when you have 3 years going by, you have 33 days off. So you make 1 Shana Me'uberet and it makes up for most of that. So now you still are off by a few days. So therefore, every few cycles of this, you'll have an extra Ibur Yar to make up for those additional 3 days that are piling up. Right? So that's with details of which is beyond the scope of this talk, but that's how Shana Me'uberet happens, right? Because you have to make sure. That's why the Sukkot of the year, right before Shana Me'uberet, is a very cold Sukkot usually, because it's gone back. Am I saying it correctly? Because again, every thing is shorter, right? The Sukkot, of the month, the year right afterwards, because it's the latest one, and then little by little it goes back, right? So right beforehand is actually very beautiful, because a month off, it's a month earlier, so it's not as cold, right? Pesach is the other way around. So that's how we have the Ibur Yar. But that Ibur Yar, that month of Adar Rishon is just in a pocket of time that doesn't really take place, because it's not a calendar month, so to speak, that's for events. So therefore, everything that happens that has to be on the calendar of events, like Purim, is Adar Sheni. The birthday of this boy that will be his bar mitzvah will be Adar Sheni as well. So it says, the Mishna Berurah, אלא חודש העיבור מקרי, שהרי אין קוראים את המגילה בעד הראשון, we don't read the מגילה עד הראשון, ואנחנו בעין ה-13 שנים שלהם, we need 13 full years, and therefore, מי שנולד ביום ראשון, ביום חודש כסלו, if you were born in Rosh Chodesh of Kislev, והיו אז שני ימים ראש חודש, and you had 2 days of ראש חודש, ובשנת 13 היה חשוון חסר וכסלו אינו אלא יום אחד, right? Some months are always male, some months are always chaser. That means we have 1 versus 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, right? And some months, some years, they are chaser, some years they are male. Again, the details of this we're not going to get into right now, but Kislev is one such month. So if he was born on a Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and that year that he was born, Shnei Yamim Rosh Chodesh, it was 2 days of Rosh Chodesh of Kislev. ובשנת 13 היה חשוון חסר וכסלו אינו אלא יום אחד. And in the year that he becomes bar mitzvah, Cheshvan was chaser, and therefore Kislev, Rosh Chodesh Kislev is going to be only 1 day in that year. Afal pi ken eno nasa bar mitzvah ad Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Still, he does not become bar mitzvah until Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So even though, in other words, that in the year that he was born on first day Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and first day Rosh Chodesh Kislev really is the 30th day of Cheshvan. That's how it is, right? That's why you have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, even though that we call them Rosh Chodesh, but really the first day is still considered really technically the last day, 30th day of the previous month of Cheshvan, and the second day Rosh Chodesh is the first day of Kislev. That's why if you take a look at the calendars, that they have 2 days Rosh Chodesh, the second day Rosh Chodesh is what day of the month? First day of the month, not the second day, right? So technically speaking, one would ask, wait a second. So if my son was born on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, on a year that was 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, and he was born the first day Rosh Chodesh Kislev, but the month that he was bar mitzvah, or was becoming bar mitzvah, was only 1 day, so maybe he should become bar mitzvah the last day of Heshvan. The halacha is no. You still have to wait until what would have been second day Rosh Chodesh, which is the first day of Kislev. Okay? ומי שנולד בראש חודש כסלו, and if you were born on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, ולא היה רק יום אחד, and that year there was only the year of birth, reverse case, right? The opposite case. The year you were born was only 1 day Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and the year that he becomes Shalosh Esrei, becomes Bar Mitzvah, hayu shnei yamim Rosh Chodesh, then what happens? You would say second day, right? The halacha is he becomes Bar Mitzvah the first day Rosh Chodesh, right? Na'asa Bar Mitzvah b'yom Rishon the Rosh Chodesh, says the Mishna Berurah, right? And the Kaf HaChaim writes the same thing. But there are those who say that he becomes Bar Mitzvah, like you said, the second day, not the first day of Rosh Chodesh. You know, Rabbi Mazuz, the Rosh Hashiva of Kisei Rahamim in Eretz Yisrael, there's a Tunisian background. He writes in his Sefer that he becomes Bar Mitzvah, should become Bar Mitzvah, like you said, which suggests that the second day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev in the year of his Bar Mitzvah. So what do you do? The Maaseh, a person should ask the question from the local Orthodox Moreh Hora'ah, when to actually have the Bar Mitzvah. That's something that, of course, they would probably tell them, well, I actually don't want to say anything because it depends on whether the Shabbat falls, if Shabbat Rosh Chodesh or not. So it could actually make a little bit of a difference for the Doraitas and the Rabbanans. That's dealt with as a safek because of the machloka that we just mentioned. Okay, so it says, just trying to think if we should start the next Seif or not. I think we're going to just leave it here because the next Seif is a very interesting one that some people, because of the averot that they have done, they're not considered part of the minyan, right? You could have a regular person, Jewish, adult, male, IQ 200, smart as anything, and yet because of his actions, he's done certain things in the community that he is excommunicated to this degree that he won't be considered part of the minyan. It's a very interesting topic that we're going to, Bezrat Hashem, continue in the days to come.